All right, guys, welcome to the show. I got a great one for you today. So in just a second, Biden dropped a final FU to Trump on his way out the door. And believe it or not, it actually, it's some good policies. So we'll talk about that. I'll show you how Pete Hegseth is indeed the dumbest man alive. I know that all of you know he denied germ theory. He doesn't think that's real. Well, I got another one for you. Classic Fox News idiot brain, massive contradiction. So we'll dive into that. We'll also get to a horrible story about 5 million kids losing their health care. 5 million kids. Then I will demonstrate for you all how Trump's iron grip on the Republican Party is complete. And we have Steve Bannon, Sloppy Steve, as he's called, teasing a Trump third term. So, I mean, look, I don't want to be hyperbolic. I don't want to overstate it. But at the same time, I was one of those people who in 2016, 2017, even 2018, when people said, I don't think he's going to leave if he loses, I was like, come on, he's going to leave. I don't know what you guys are talking about. That seems a little over the top, doesn't it? And then he tried to stay in power. He did. He did the fake elector slates on January 6th. And so, I mean, you can't put anything by this guy, man. It's that simple. So everybody do me a big favor. Hook a brother up with a sub on YouTube. That helps out massively, and it costs you absolutely nothing. It helps spread us around in the YouTube algorithm. And much love to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you'd like to help out, that link is below. All right, let's dive into it, y'all. So, article in Axios here. Biden's final sprint as Trump's rollback of his agenda looms. So, what they go on to say is, on his way out the door here, he's finalizing some new regulations, some new rules that, the ball had already been rolling on, right? And some of these rules are, he's got a highway rule in here. It's a new seatbelt rule in here. But the more important ones are banning junk fees. That was finalized on Tuesday after a 4-1 vote by the FTC. Yet again, this is everybody's favorite government official, Lena Khan, doing incredibly based things. So a ban on junk fees is now official. And then also the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau last week finalized a new rule capping overdraft fees at large banks. So this is what we call, ladies and gentlemen, a massive dub, right? Nobody likes overdraft fees. Nobody likes junk fees. And this is Biden saying, look, on my way out the door, we're done with them. We're going to cap overdraft fees and we're going to ban junk fees. Massive win for everybody. The polling on this is as high as anything can be in our modern partisan political environment. But guess what? So they go on to explain in this piece here that what Trump did the last time he was in office is he used the Congressional Review Act, a provision of the Congressional Review Act, which basically makes it so you can expedite overturning any sort of new rules or regulations that were put in place by the previous administration. You can sort of overturn them like that, right? And they're explaining how, of course, when Trump gets in there on day one, he's going to start signing his executive orders. He's going to start reversing whatever he can from the Biden era and the Biden administration. And they're already plotting getting rid of it, bro. They're already plotting getting rid of it. So they explain how the last time he was in office, he overturned over 100 environmental rules. So this was, we talked about this vis-a-vis RFK Jr. Actually, it was 117, I believe was the exact number. Environmental protections were rolled back. We're talking about things involving chemicals, clean air, clean water, things of that nature. And this is in the crosshairs for DOGE. They also say there were a few key Biden-era rules that have already been quashed by the courts or appear to be on their way out. So we discussed an expansion of the overtime laws that would have given an extra 4 million more workers overtime pay. Remember this? We discussed this not too long ago. Well, a Texas judge, a MAGA Texas judge, overturned that rule, put his middle finger up to 4 million workers and said, you don't get overtime pay. The FTC's proposed ban on non-compete agreements, this is something that they worked on. This is something that they finalized. That also appears doomed in court after a Texas ruling. Buckle up, y'all. And look, the whole point of me doing this segment is to point out to you guys, for all their flaws, here we have a Democratic administration banning junk fees, capping overdraft fees, giving 4 million more workers overtime pay, and banning non-competes. Every single one of these policies, massively popular. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, where you fall in the political spectrum. You talk to your average Joe or Jane, and they will say, I like every single one of those things. And what just happened, or what's going to happen? In some instances, right-wing judges slapped it down, in the case of the overtime example and the non-compete. And in the other examples, as soon as Trump gets back in office, him and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk with their Doge bullshit, they're going to say, overturn all these terrible rules by the Biden administration. And understand something. It is on you, it is on me, it is on the media, and it is on the Democratic politicians to be very clear about this. Hey, here's what he just scrapped. Donald Trump just brought back junk fees. He is on the side of junk fees. He is on the side of the big corporations ripping you off. And make that clear to people. You know, we've talked about, since the election loss for Kamala, we've talked about one of the problems for the Democrats, and there really is a media problem, right? There's a media problem and there's a messaging problem among many other problems. But if your media is failing you and your messaging is failing you, then what is very likely to happen, I say this with no glee, is that Trump overturns the rule banning junk fees and capping overdraft fees, and nobody talks about it. No Democrat will bring it up. No Democrat will make Trump pay a political price for it. No Democrat will pin it to Vivek Ramaswamy and Doge and Elon Musk, and we'll just move along as if everything's hunky-dory. But guess what? It's not hunky-dory. It's not hunky-dory, and people's lives are genuinely going to be affected in a negative way. Don't believe me? Ask the 4 million people who just got their overtime pay taken away, right? So we got to be sharp. We got to be clear. The messaging has to be on point. They are going to roll back rules that objectively were good for regular, average, working Americans. They're trying to make your life harder and more difficult, and they're siding with big business. There's not a populist bone or a pro-worker bone or an anti-establishment bone in any of their bodies, and we need to make that clear. So this is Biden's last, on his way out the door, this is his last middle finger to Trump and MAGA, but guess what? When they come in, they're going to invoke that provision of the Congressional Review Act. They're going to wipe the books clean of all the recent rules that just went into place and regulations that just went into place. But the content of that is what matters. And the content really is Trump and MAGA giving a massive middle finger to good people in this country who just don't want to get ripped off. Trump is on the side of the corporations ripping you off. And it's going to be super, super clear. But we have to make the argument so people understand that and people know that and they act accordingly. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.